Ever have one of those dreams that felt so real, you woke up and were like, wait, was that actually happening?
Yeah.
Like maybe you were flying
Mm-hmm.
or talking to someone who's no longer with us?
Yeah.
That feeling of, wait, was that all just in my head?
Yeah. It's kind of what we're going to be unpacking today as we take a deep dive
Okay.
into the simulation hypothesis.
That's cool. So
Look.
what if our reality is like
Yeah.
an illusion,
Whoa.
a construct?
Yeah.
What's so captivating about this is that it's not just some modern science fiction thing.
Right.
This idea that our reality might be like
Mhm.
an elaborate illusion
Yeah.
has been around for centuries.
It's true.
Yeah.
Ancient philosophers like Zhuangzi
Mm-hmm.
grappled with this very question.
Yeah.
You know, he had that famous dream where he was a butterfly.
Right.
And upon waking up, he was like,
Mm-hmm.
am I a man who dreamt he was a butterfly?
Right.
Or a butterfly? Now dreaming he's a man.
Yeah.
Talk about a mind-bending thought experiment. Absolutely.
Right.
And that same line of questioning about the nature of reality
Yeah.
echoes through Plato's allegory of the cave. Imagine being chained in a cave your whole life,
Okay.
only able to see shadows projected on a wall.
Okay.
You'd start to believe
Yeah.
those shadows were the real thing, wouldn't you?
It really makes you wonder how much of what we perceive as reality
Right.
is just our limited perspective.
Totally.
So how does this all connect
Yeah.
to the simulation hypothesis we hear about today?
The modern version asks, what if our reality is similarly constructed,
Okay.
not by shadows on a cave wall,
Mm-hmm.
but by an incredibly sophisticated computer program?
Okay, I'm already feeling that. Wait, was that all just in my head, feeling creeping back in?
Right.
But where did this idea come from? Is it just a bunch of sci-fi fans with too much time on their hands?
Not quite.
Okay.
While the idea has definitely found its way into pop culture,
Right.
it was actually a philosopher
Okay.
named Nick Bostrom who really brought the simulation hypothesis
Yeah.
into mainstream philosophical discussion
Okay, yeah.
back in 2003.
Right.
His argument is based on the idea that if a civilization reaches a point
Okay.
where they can create truly realistic simulations,
Right.
complete with conscious beings,
Whoa.
then it becomes highly probable
Okay.
that we are already living in one of those simulations.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like if WE could create a SimCity-style world,
Exactly.
but way more advanced,
Yes.
where the little Sims inside actually felt and thought,
Right.
wouldn't a more advanced civilization than us
Totally.
be able to do the same,
Yeah.
but on a universe-sized scale?
Absolutely.
What?
Bostrom's argument boils down to three possibilities.
Okay.
Either civilizations like ours tend to wipe themselves out before reaching that level of technological sophistication.
Okay.
They reach that level but choose not to create such simulations.
Okay.
Or we are already in a simulation. And he argues that at least one of these has to be true.
Okay. That's both fascinating and slightly terrifying.
Right.
But even if we entertain this idea,
Yeah.
how would a simulation even account for something as complex as our conscious experience?
Right.
If we're all just lines of code,
Yeah.
does that mean our feelings, our thoughts aren't
Oh,
real?
right. That's where things get really tricky.
Yeah.
Even defining what consciousness is, let alone how to replicate it,
Right.
is a challenge. It's not just about processing information. It's about subjective experience, self-awareness,
Yeah.
all those things that make us feel like unique individuals.
It's like that whole debate a while back
Yeah.
about Google's AI,
Right.
LaMDA,
Yeah.
and whether it was actually sentient.
Right.
That engineer who claimed the chatbot was conscious, it really blurred the lines
Totally.
between what's real and what's simulated.
That was a fascinating case. LaMDA was incredibly good at mimicking human conversation.
Yeah.
But the consensus among experts is that it wasn't actually conscious.
Okay.
Just incredibly good at following its program.
Artificial consciousness is still
Yeah.
in the realm of science fiction.
Yeah.
But even if we could create it,
Yeah.
would that definitively prove we're in a simulation?
Not necessarily.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where things get even more complex.
Yeah.
You see, one of the biggest hurdles for the simulation hypothesis
Yeah.
is that it's incredibly difficult, if not impossible,
Right.
to prove or disprove scientifically.
It's like trying to find the edges of the universe
Right.
while standing inside it.
Totally.
But wait, doesn't this whole thing violate Occam's razor?
Yeah.
Isn't it simpler to just assume
Sure.
This is the base reality?
Yeah, Ocker's razor does suggest that the simplest explanation is usually the best.
Right.
However,
Yeah.
there are aspects of our universe that make even the most skeptical person pause and wonder
Okay.
if there's something more going on.
You're talking about that whole fine-tuning argument?
Precisely.
Right. The idea that
Yeah.
the universe seems almost too perfectly calibrated
Yeah.
for life to exist.
The values of fundamental physical constants, like
Mm.
the strength of gravity or the
Yeah.
speed of light,
Uh-huh.
are so precise that even the tiniest deviations
Yeah.
would have resulted in a universe
Right.
where stars, planets,
Mm.
and ultimately life as we know it
Yeah.
couldn't exist.
It's like winning the cosmic lottery a billion times over.
Right.
The odds are just astronomically small.
Exactly.
Right.
And that improbability
Yeah.
led some to think that maybe, just maybe,
Yeah.
our universe is the designed system
Okay.
carefully crafted for a specific purpose.
And then there are those weird coincidences,
Right.
like how the moon
Yeah.
perfectly covers the sun during a solar eclipse.
Uh-huh.
Almost too perfect to be random chance. Right?
It is a striking coincidence.
Yeah.
But while these observations can be incredibly thought-provoking,
Right.
they don't necessarily prove we're in a simulation. They
Yeah.
just raise questions that we don't yet have definitive answers to.
So where do we go from here? If it's nearly impossible to prove or disprove,
Yeah.
are we just stuck in this endless loop of what ifs?
Not necessarily.
Go.
There are other avenues to explore.
Okay.
For instance, have you ever considered
Yeah.
how a civilization could even have the computing power
Right.
to create
Right.
a universe-sized simulation?
Yeah, I mean, our most powerful supercomputers struggle to simulate
Right.
even tiny biological processes.
Exactly.
How could you possibly simulate an entire universe
Yeah.
with all its complexity?
It's a mind-boggling concept.
Yeah.
But proponents of the simulation hypothesis suggest that the simulators wouldn't need to render every single detail
Right.
perfectly
Yeah.
all the time.
Okay.
Think of it like a video game
Right.
where only the areas the player is currently exploring are
Yeah.
rendered in high detail.
Ah, so like a cosmic optimization strategy.
Right.
Clever.
Yeah.
But even then, the energy requirements would still be immense.
Which brings us to the fascinating concept of a Dyson sphere.
Okay.
Imagine a civilization so advanced
Right.
they could build a megastructure
Yeah.
that completely surrounds a star,
Okay.
capturing all of its energy output.
Now that is thinking big.
Right.
We're talking about harnessing the power of an entire sun.
Exactly.
Wow.
Physicist Freeman Dyson
Okay.
proposed this idea
Uh-huh.
as a potential solution to the energy problem
Okay.
for advanced civilizations.
And wait, didn't someone take that idea even further with
Okay.
the concept of a matryoshka brain?
Yes.
Like nesting multiple Dyson spheres within each other
Right.
for exponential power?
You're absolutely right.
Wow.
A matryoshka brain would take energy capture and computational power to an entirely different level.
It's mind-blowing to think about the sheer scale
Yeah.
of these hypothetical structures.
Right.
But could they actually be built?
Yeah.
And if so, what does that tell us about the possibility of our reality being a simulation?
Those are excellent questions.
Yeah.
And while we can't say for sure if such megastructures are possible,
Right.
the fact that they don't violate any known laws of physics is pretty intriguing.
It definitely adds another layer to this whole simulation mystery.
It does.
But hold on a second.
Yeah.
Doesn't Moore's law suggest that we'll eventually hit a limit in terms of computing power?
Yes.
Wouldn't that put a cap on how complex a simulation could be?
You bring up a crucial point.
Yeah.
Moore's law, which states that the number of transistors on a microchip doubles roughly every 2 years, has been a driving force behind the exponential growth of computing power.
But we've also heard that transistors can only get so small
Exactly.
before hitting the limits of physics.
Precisely.
Yeah.
We're reaching a point where quantum effects start to interfere with how transistors function.
Right.
So while we're constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible, there might be a fundamental limit to how powerful computers can become using our current understanding of physics.
So does that mean a simulated universe is impossible? Or does it just mean that if we are in a simulation, it might not be running on the same laws of physics as we understand them?
That's a question that gets right to the heart of the mystery.
Yeah.
If the simulators exist, and if they've created our reality, their technology might operate on principles that are beyond our current comprehension.
Which would make it even harder to detect if we're in a simulation. It's like trying to find a needle in an infinite haystack when you don't even know what the needle looks like.
Exactly. And that's one of the most frustrating yet fascinating aspects of the simulation hypothesis. It pushes us to the very limits of our understanding, forcing us to confront the vast unknown.
Oh, I'm definitely feeling my brain reaching its processing limit for today. Where do we even go from here? Are there any clues, any hints that could help us unravel this mystery?
There are some tantalizing clues hidden within the strange world of quantum mechanics that might shed some light on the nature of our reality. Would you like to dive into that rabbit hole next?
Oh, absolutely. Quantum mechanics.
Sure.
Sign me up.
All right.
It's always a good time for a mind-bending journey.
Let's do it. Let's step into the quantum realm, where things get a bit weird, even by simulation hypothesis standards. One of the most mind-boggling concepts in quantum mechanics is the observer effect.
Oh, yeah. This is where things start to feel like we've fallen down the rabbit hole.
Like
the idea that just by observing something, we might actually be changing it.
Exactly. It's as if reality is somehow responsive to our attention. Which, as you can imagine, has some pretty wild philosophical implications.
Give me an example of how this observer effect thing actually plays out.
Sure.
Does this mean I could just stare really hard at something and make it change?
Well, not quite that simple, but it's a fun thought. Think about the classic double slit experiment. You shine a beam of light through two narrow slits. And if you just observe where the light hits the screen behind the slits, you'd expect to see two bright spots, right?
Makes sense.
One for each slit.
Two slits, two spots of light.
Right.
Simple physics.
But here's where it gets strange. When you actually perform the experiment, you get an interference pattern, not just two distinct spots. It's like each particle of light is somehow going through both slits at the same time.
Okay, now my brain is starting to hurt. How can something be in two places at once?
Right.
That's the kind of stuff that makes you question if you're dreaming.
And the really mind-bending part is that the act of observing, of measuring which slit each photon goes through, seems to collapse those possibilities into one definite outcome. It's as if the particles know they're being watched and change their behavior accordingly.
It's almost as if reality is less like a solid object, but more like a wave of possibilities that only solidify when we observe them. Kind of like that analogy we talked about earlier with this cylinder that looks like a circle or a rectangle, depending on your perspective.
That's a great connection. And some proponents of the simulation hypothesis suggest that this is evidence of our reality adjusting to our observations in real time, like a video game, rendering only what the player is looking at.
So are you saying that if we're not looking at something, it might exist in a blurry state of potential?
Well,
like my coffee cup might suddenly disappear when I turn my back on it.
It's not quite that dramatic. But the observer effect does raise some profound questions about whether reality exists independently of our perception.
But wait, isn't the observer effect just a well-established principle of quantum mechanics?
Exactly.
Like not necessarily proof of a simulation?
You're right. The observer effect has been demonstrated in countless experiments and is a cornerstone of how we understand the quantum world.
It's just that it's so strange and counterintuitive.
It is.
That it makes you wonder if there's something more to the story. Something beyond our current understanding.
I understand the temptation to connect the dots that way.
It's
natural to seek explanations for things that seem to defy logic.
So even if the observer effect doesn't prove we're living in a simulation, it definitely adds fuel to the fire.
It does.
So to speak.
It's
like another piece of the puzzle. That makes you go, there's something really weird going on here.
Exactly. It reinforces the idea that there might be far more to reality than meets the eye.
And that maybe our perception of the world is just the tip of the cosmic iceberg.
Beautifully put.
Yeah.
Now let's shift gears for a moment and explore another intriguing aspect of the simulation hypothesis.
Okay.
The question of the simulators themselves.
Oh, okay.
Who are they?
Yeah.
And why would they create a simulation like ours?
Oh, good question.
I know.
I mean, if we are in a simulation, it's only natural to wonder who's pulling the strings. Okay, so we've talked about the mind-bending implications of the observer effect and how it just makes us question the very nature of reality.
For sure.
But if we entertain this idea that we are in a simulation, the next logical question is, well, who created it?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
And unfortunately, it's one we might never have a definitive answer to.
Yeah.
But we can certainly explore.
Okay, let's speculate.
Yeah.
What kind of beings would even have the capacity to create a simulation as complex as our universe?
It's almost impossible for us to imagine, given our current level of understanding.
Yeah.
But if we extrapolate from our own technological trajectory, it's reasonable to assume that a civilization far more advanced than ours could possess the knowledge and resources to accomplish such a feat.
So we're talking about a civilization that's mastered things like quantum computing, maybe even harnessed energy sources we haven't even dreamt of yet.
Exactly.
And remember those megastructures we discussed earlier?
Yes.
The Dyson spheres and Matryoshka brains?
Yes.
Those could potentially provide the immense computational power needed to run a universe-sized simulation.
I could.
It's mind-blowing to think that we might be living inside a computer program powered by an entire star.
Totally.
But why would anyone go through all that trouble?
Yeah.
What would be the purpose of creating such a simulation?
There are a number of theories about the motivations behind a hypothetical simulation. Some suggest it could be for research purposes. Maybe they're studying the evolution of consciousness.
Like a giant cosmic experiment.
Perhaps. Or maybe it's for entertainment. Imagine a civilization so advanced that they've created entire universes for their amusement.
Wow.
Like elaborate virtual reality games.
Talk about immersive entertainment.
I know.
But it also kind of makes you feel like a lab rat, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, are they watching us?
Right.
Taking notes?
That's a question that has crossed the minds of many who contemplate the simulation hypothesis.
Yeah.
It is unsettling to think that we might be under constant observation by beings we can't even comprehend.
It's like that feeling you get when you realize there might be a hidden camera somewhere.
Yeah.
Only amplified to a cosmic scale.
Right.
But let's be real.
Yeah.
Is there any way to actually prove or disprove this whole simulation idea?
That's the thing.
Or are we just destined to keep pondering it forever?
It's a frustrating truth, but with our current understanding and technology, it's incredibly difficult to find definitive proof. We might be looking for evidence in all the wrong places. Or maybe the evidence is so subtle that we simply haven't recognized it yet.
It's like trying to find a message in a bottle that was thrown into an ocean on another planet.
Yeah.
The odds are stacked against us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the lack of definitive proof doesn't mean we should stop exploring the question. The act of pondering these big existential questions is what drives us to expand our knowledge and understanding of the universe.
It's a reminder that there's still so much we don't know.
Totally.
And that the pursuit of knowledge is a never-ending journey.
It is. And who knows? Maybe someday, with advancements in technology or a sudden burst of insight, we'll finally unlock the secrets of reality and discover whether we're living in a simulation or not.
Until then, I guess we'll just have to keep our eyes open for any glitches in the matrix.
Indeed. And perhaps a healthy dose of skepticism.
Mixed with a sense of wonder is the best approach to navigating this fascinating and perplexing idea.
Well, this deep dive has certainly given me a lot to think about.
It has.
It's amazing how a question as simple as, do we live in a simulation, can lead to such profound and mind-bending explorations.
Absolutely. And sometimes the journey of exploration is just as valuable as finding a definitive answer.
So to our listeners out there, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep wondering.
Absolutely.
Maybe you'll stumble upon a clue that unlocks the true nature of our reality. And if you do, please let us know.